Hello and welcome to another in-session piece, and this time around we have travelled across the water and we are over in France. And I use the term we because this indeed is a rather special session. I'm joined by my old man. Now I don't do nowhere near as much fishing with him as I know that I should be doing, but we all know what it's like. We always say we're going to do stuff and the years just tick away and we never get around to doing it. So I'm over here with my old man and also Brad behind the camera as well, and we're here at Lac Des Lesmont for a week. Now we arrived yesterday after a fair drive, and what we also did as well is we never went on the train, we took the ferry, but a bit of a mistake, it was kids half term, which that was the reason we didn't go on a train, because the prices were absolutely extortionate. But what it did mean is the ferry was absolutely packed. It was a nice smooth crossing nonetheless, down to the lake, and when we got here it rained continuously from the time that we come through the gate till the point where we went to bed. And they got a cabin here which is fully kitted out, so Brad and Dad, like I say, they stayed down there on their own, and I come round into the swim, and me being as eager as what I am to get the rods out, even though I was absolutely knackered and it was chucking it down, I got the rods out just before it got dark last night. Now fishing here at Lesmont, I am fishing for a carp that will be bigger than anything that I have ever landed before. The big common in here goes well over 80 pounds and it hasn't been caught for 18 months. And aside from that as well, there is a massive, massive head of huge backup fish as well. Like I say, I got the rods out last night. To be honest with you, again, had a little bit of a mare with a bait boat. I'm not the best when it comes to technology, trying to use that when it was chucking it down with rain on a lake that I've never fished before. I pretty much half-heartedly sailed 3 rods across to the far side, clipped the bobbins on, turned the alarms on, and jumped in bed. By that time, I was so tired, I literally fell asleep in a matter of seconds, and believe it or not, actually woke up this morning just before first light to one of the rods going. I was in a little bit of a daze, got out, landed the fish, hit the ground running with a nice mid-30 straight away, and this was followed very, very closely by another 2, an upper 30 and a common just over 46 pounds. So bearing in mind I've never been here before, I got the rods out when I was tired, it has been a very, very good start to the trip. So yeah, we have still got 6 nights left. The weather is good. My old man's in position now. He's got all of his rods sorted. So all we've got to do now is carry on putting the rods out, and you never know, that next bite could be an absolute giant. So early this morning, I've had the 3 fish. I've had obviously a fish on every single rod. My furthest left-hand rod is almost on the mouth up of the bay that's called the Stalking swim. And yeah, just come down here now with Dad, and it's quite sort of evident that there's a lot of fish down there. They're visibly fizzing. And I'm one of these, even with a fish finder and an echo sounder on a bait boat, when I see a fish on it, I'm a little bit dubious, but pretty much where Dad took it over to where I've sort of seen the fish showing and fizzing, it is pinging up with fish. Yes, we're just going to get him a couple of rods rigged up now, and hopefully he can get underway as well. But yeah, what an amazing place, and you never know, like you're not that far away from potentially catching a mid-80 or even a 90-pound common, so it's got to be out there somewhere. Someone's got to catch it. He's having it, I tell you. They're fizzing like crazy, and they must be big bubbles to be coming up from 20 foot of water as well, because when I fart in the bath, they're bigger bubbles than that.
Yeah, I've just put the boat out just to pick a few spots, and it would appear there's a few fish up here, so yeah, I'm going to sit up here for the day and then go back down the other end tonight. But it's looking good. I'm just going to find a spot over in that far corner over there.
Lesmont is predominantly a bait boat venue with deep margins and often wary fish. We'd been informed being subtle was the key to picking off fish. With the aid of the fish fizzing and also the echo informing us of the depths, Dad dropped his left rod down into the corner of the stalker swim. With his right rod going out towards an overhanging tree that again showed signs of activity, it was well worth spending the afternoon here before going back to the swims for the evening. Look at that. Won't catch a 20 this week. It's a start though, that'll do. That'll do. Put it there. It's all a bit of a mad dash. Got a carp. That's a £20 today. That'll do.
Well, the one you had the bite off was the one that we didn't see much fish in.
No, but we did see the most fish there.
Yeah.
Kick him the hell.
See, it's not coming in as easy as the other one did.
It's hard to tell, isn't it, until they come up. The problem is because the water's this colour, they're nothing, and then all of a sudden it's just like. Brad does it. Talk us through what you're doing here, Tom.
Shaking, that's what I'm doing at the moment.
Look at the water kicking
Yeah,
up.
that's boiling up from a long way down. A long way down. Massive.
It's long, it's longer than any of the ones I've landed. That's a lot bigger than you think.
Yeah, look at the size of it.
The size
of the other one.
Jesus Christ! If one of them's a 20, the other one's nearly 3 times as big.
That's got to be well 40 plus that.
That's 50 plus that. That's way bigger than what I've had. Isn't it, Brad?
Yeah.
That's way big.
I don't know.
Oh.
Well, thank you.
Well, don't matter, we're here for a
Look
thing.
at that. My God.
That's a whopping lump of carp, that.
Jesus, I've been here 24 hours. I've had my rods out an hour and a half.
Work smarter, not harder.
Look at the size of its head.
And compared to a 20, I mean, that's a 20 pounder, isn't it, that? Look. It's like a grass carp. Well, as you'd have seen there, a bit of a mad 5 minutes of activity. Dad's right hand rod went first, and then whilst we're sort of pondering over that, getting all the camera gear ready to film that one, his left hand one went. But the one he had on his right hand rod is a fish that we reckon's about mid-20, but all of the fish here have got to be weighed, and they've all been chipped as well. So we're just going to take it out, weigh it, check the chip number so we can register it for the bailiff, but we're going to get the big one out as well and get it on the bank and have a look at it, because let me tell you, I reckon it's bigger than anything that I've had so far. So yeah, it's a big common.
I think it's PB material, common wise.
Bucket material.
Yeah. What is the PB?
Without looking back, I'm pretty sure it's something just around £46, just over. I don't think I've had a £50 common. I think I'd remember it, even at my age.
I should get to throw a bucket of water over me old man.
No, we don't do buckets of water.
Right, let's get it out.
I would have to be fully wet-suited up with a hood. What do you reckon? That's a mid-20, that, isn't it?
24.
If you're struggling. Oh my God,
The other
how
one's
big's
quite
the
big
other
then.
one? It's 27,
27.2, that one. Right.
Oh dear.
The other one's at least twice the size.
At least.
That above one's a big fish, that is.
Right. We was going to slip this one straight back, thinking it was just a low 20, but it goes £27. And so we're going to take a quick shot of it, but if this is 27, the one in the net has got to be, I don't know, it looks double the size of this. So we're going to slip this one back and then have a look at the main event, and it's just started to rain. Lovely. Right, let's get you back. On the fence, it's over £50, I would say. So where have we got to go to? There. Oh God. Really? It's over 20. 30, 40, 50. Yeah, you're about right,
50,
yeah. About 53, 53.8, 53.5.
53.8.
Glasses.
That's a big fish, that.
PB common, that.
Yes, well done. What a beast. Right.
50's huge.
Well, personal best don't come along very often, especially when you're fishing with your old man. What a moment. Check this bad boy out, if he can lift it. 53 pounds of solid Lesmont common carp. Look at that. It doesn't come much better than that. A couple of hours down in a swim that's known as Stalkers. And the swim is known as Stalkers for a very good reason, because the fish spend a lot of time in it during the day. He's come down and he's stalked a couple out. 53 pound personal best common. What a monster.
Happy days. Oh. As Tom said earlier, you don't get to do this very often, but just about to release a PB common. There you go. There she goes. Lovely. And there's only one thing you do after you catch a carp.
You know what that is.
Get the kettle on.
Wow.
Let's have tea.
More to come.
I need it.
More to come. We're one day in.
One day in, yeah.
One day in.
Now the swim's going to get a rest. I could easily just put more rods out and maybe get 2 or 3 more, but I think leave it as it is now, and then we'll get more chances during the week, I think, to come back out and stalk them. So,
that's it.
Bizarre as it might sound,
Tea time.
We're leaving it.
Brew time. The peg that I've chose to fish out here at Lesmont is swim number 8. Now when you look at swim number 8 on the map, it's right in the middle of the lake. Wherever I go fishing, if you can either get on a point swim or a peg that's in the middle of the lake, certainly when you're here for a week like we are, it's always a very, very good area, purely and simply because as the fish get pushed around by the angling pressure, they have to pass you one way and also the other way as well. So I've got a lot of water in here, and I've also got a lot of options, which again is something that you want. Certainly when you're coming abroad, you want to have as many options as you can, because let's be honest, no matter how many fish you might catch from one particular spot, at some point during the course of your session, it will always dry up, and you've got to try and look for some other options to carry on the action throughout the whole entire duration of your session. So first things first, this peg fishes across to a far margin. Now I believe at the back end of last year they have removed quite a lot of the snags that were over on the far side, which I think is where a lot of people fished up towards, and the fish here do spend a lot of time in and around the snags. But even though there isn't as many snags over there now, what there is the added advantage of the sun beating down on that back margin. Carp are cold-blooded, and we're at the back end of winter now, just going into the spring, and they're going to be looking for as much warmth as they possibly can. So that's almost going to be like a bit of a rat run, you know. You can imagine there's a lot of traffic on this bank where the anglers are fishing. You can imagine the fish just constantly cruising up and down that bank. And there is quite a steep slope over there. So from the margin, it drops down to 20 foot very, very quickly. So I think it's going to be important this week to find the depth of water that these fish want to feed in. But most importantly, I've got depth from 20 foot right up to 10 foot that I can explore. So there's loads of options over there. Now, aside from that as well, there's a real big, deep channel in the middle between me and the far margin, which again might not be an area that a lot of fish patrol, but sometimes with places like this, you tend to find the bigger fish might stay away from where potentially a lot of the shoal fish might be, which would be in the shallower water. So that's also an option. And what I've also got as well, which is very, very good, is on my near side margin is a couple of real prominent gravel humps. Now, a very deep lake like Lesmont, if you've got anywhere that's slightly shallower than the rest of the lake, these are always going to be areas that carp are going to patrol around, especially if the air pressure increases. I want to be trying to look to find the shallowest water that I can physically find. And if the fish start showing in close, I know then I've got a couple of options to bring some rods in close and fish in sort of my margin, so to speak, as well. So this Peg 8 has actually got a lot of options for rods. I'm only fishing 3 rods. You can fish 4 rods, but I only like to fish with 3. I don't know why. They're easier to control. If I felt I needed a 4th rod, I could potentially borrow one off my old man and put a 4th out, but I'm going to sit on my hands. I don't think I need a 4th rod. I've got plenty of options. I can easily move the rods with the aid of the bait boat. But one thing that I've always learned, especially when going to France, is find the spots that you're happy with at the start of the week, even if it takes you a couple of hours to find those spots, and stick to them throughout the duration of the week, because it is very, very easily, certainly with a bait boat, to just load it up, drop it here, there and everywhere. By the Wednesday, Thursday, you've got 15, 20 sort of bait boat fulls of bait out in front of you. You haven't really got any spots marked, and it's very hard to get something going. So yeah, Peg 8 gives me so many options throughout the course of the week, and as the weather fluctuates, it's very easy to change from one spot to another and hopefully keep the bites coming. So I'm just repositioning a rod, and I thought now is a good time to talk about the bait that I'm actually loading up into the boat. Now, you're very restricted out here at Lesmont with the rules. It's boilies and pellets only. So in terms of what you can use, it doesn't really give you a great sort of deal of stuff to play with. But one thing I have learned from fishing bait boat waters over the years is that a lot of people sort of have a boat with a hopper or two hoppers and they want to load it right up to the brim. Now, all these fish will probably ever see is great big mounds of bait out into the lake, and every time they come over that, they'll just associate that with danger. So what I'm doing is, knowing that the bait boat is going to be dropping it extremely accurate, and given the time of year, I'm sort of using as minimal bait as possible, but as much attraction as possible. Now, first and foremost, after I've laid the rig in, I'm just putting sort of a base layer of 2.3mm bloodworm pellets over the whole bottom of the boat. Now, what this does is it just stops the rig from moving around when the boat's on its way out there. And certainly when you're using a Ronnie rig, there's nothing worse than thinking that that rig could potentially be rolling around in the bottom of the boat, and it could just sort of kink, or sort of the hook could go over itself, causing your presentation to be hindered. So I'm putting a little layer of 2.3mm bloodworm pellets. Again, these are a fantastic pellet. They're small, but they leak attraction for absolutely hours, so you don't need loads of them. And what I'm doing is I'm just putting a little bit of cloudy manila liquid over the top of these. And the reason for that is on the way out there, the cloudy manila will sort of bind the pellets together. So when I'm dropping the rig itself, obviously the rig is dropping vertical, straight from the boat, straight down. Obviously, given the depth of water that I'm fishing, the bait will have a little bit of a spread, but what will happen is the liquid will sort of bind the pellets together and almost form like a little bit of a ground bait ball type consistency, and it means the pellets will be dropping right down over the hook bait. And then in terms of boilies, again, I'm literally putting about a dozen whole 12mm manila active and then a dozen broken ones as well. And the reason I'm putting the broken ones in there is as they flutter down through the column, they're going to create sort of an outer ring on the bait, and the whole boilies, the pellet and the cloudy manila liquid is going to be sat directly down over the top of the bait. So yeah, very, very simple. But again, like I've always said to people, it's all right having loads of different bits and pieces, but it's knowing why you do it. And more importantly, when you're coming out to somewhere like France, you're probably not going to be doing nothing too dissimilar to what all of the guys have done before you, but understanding why you're doing what you're doing and ultimately getting your free bait over the top of your hook bait is definitely what's going to put more carp on the bank for you. And one final thing, there are a couple of tame moorhens here at Lesmont, and they've sort of worked out that if they jump on the back of the boat when they're going out there, if you haven't got it covered up, they are in fact going to have a free meal. And the last thing you also want to be doing is them getting all the way down to the hook bait and then unfortunately hooking themselves, because then you're going to have a drama. So all I'm doing is I've got some purpose-made covers done for this boat, and just putting it over the top of the hopper, so I know that every time I send this boat out there, no matter how many birds jump on top of it, they're not going to be getting to the bait that's inside it. Well, it's been a pretty motionless day really. I put the rods back out where I caught from last night this morning. The weather's been a bit rough. It's rained, then it's sunny, then it's rained again. But I'm going to put the rods back out. Well, I'm just doing it now. This is my final rod, the third rod to put back out. And I'm going to put them back out on the same spots. A, I've already caught from those spots. And B, I put bait on them this morning when I re-dropped them. So if night time is the time where I'm going to get my bites, I don't really want to put 3 boatfuls of bait in a different area. I'd rather fish over this area again for another night, just to see if I can catch again off of this spot, just to make sure that the bait that I'm putting out is sort of being eaten and I'm not just putting spots of bait all over the lake, if that makes sense. This one's a little bit of a mission. It's not round the corner, but it's on the opposite margin. But I sort of lose sight of the boat just by this tree, and then it comes back into sight in a minute when I get nearer to where it's going to go. So yeah, this is the third and final rod, and hopefully, now the rain seems to have dropped off a little bit as well, it's going to be a nice clear night. You never know, might even get another bite or two. But what a great start to the trip already, you know. 5 fish between me and Dad, a 30, or a couple of 30s, a 20, a 40 and a 50. What more could you ask for? And we've still got 6 nights to go. So I'm going to make sure this goes out absolutely bang on, and I can sit behind them then and be 100% confident that something might happen tonight.
Rod? Rod?
Powerful, powerful fish, these. When is it's run that? It's just along the margin. Oh, Melvin's got a bite. Yeah. Right, so actually, as you can probably tell, mid-drama. Well, it isn't mid-drama because it's bloody good is what it is. My left-hand rod went, which is fished, the one I said to you before that was just down to the left. Well, I say down to the left, it's sort of off at a 45. Oh, excuse me, over on the far bank. Trying to get this one out of the way and away from any danger. And I thought I was caught on my middle rod. But it turns out I'm not. I've actually got a double take. But much like I do in the UK, I'm focusing on this one. Then I'm going to go for this one down here. It's pulling line. I'm sort of hoping it's not going to go very far. I'd rather focus on one, get this one hopefully in, and then I can go back to that one there. So, all over the place. Unbelievable sport. Never ever expected it to go like this. Not bad fish in. It's like our first mirror of the trip. Oh, come off right there. Easily a 50-pounder. Never. See how big that was? Hope this one don't come off now. Mate, I'm gutted. That's a gutter, that is. I'm absolutely devastated. I hate losing fish. It just started coming up. Just see the fish. It was a mirror. Looked like it could have been a 40-pounder, which is a very, very big fish, and they obviously all camp from a place like this. But you're high off the water anyway, and it's very deep, and they're sort of coming up like this. Just a bit too much for the fish. He decided he didn't want to have a picture tonight, so I'm now going to concentrate on this one, because this one's gone from being hooked at, imagine, 12 o'clock, and it's actually ripped me round to 9 o'clock at a big sort of 45 or 90 degree angle, so to speak. So I'm going to hopefully get this one back through now in front. It'd be nice to land one of the two, that's for sure. He's a good one. Don't want to miss him. Go on. Yes. Oh, sorry, that was a little bit rushed. It's another good fish. Makes up for the one that I lost. Even though I'm not going to not talk about the one that I lost, I've got this one in. Oh, what a good start tonight too. Another good common. The one I lost was unfortunately a mirror, which would have been our first mirror of the trip. But like I say, I'm not going to dwell on that because I'll start crying otherwise. I'm not going to do that. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. It's weird though, playing them in this deep water, like they fight mega, mega hard and then they just appear. But as soon as they appear, they literally just give up. And that's why that one there, it sort of hit the surface and I didn't want to waste any time once his head was up in the net. But yeah, got a little bit of a knee tremor going on. That's how it should make you feel. The beauty of a bait bow is it takes literally minutes to get the rod back out. So I've safely secured that fish down there in the landing net. I've quickly put a fresh hook on the Ronnie. Bait was still fine because it hadn't been out there that long. Chucked it in a boat, a little bit of bait back over the top, and it's on its way. So I'm going to drop this off, bring the boat back, we'll get this fish out, and then I'll, the one that I lost the fish on, I'll put that out once I've dealt with the fish. Yeah, a good start to the second night, albeit I lost one, which is a bit of a gutter, but can't dwell on stuff like that. It's you've got to look on to the next one. I'm normally the world's worst for sort of analysing why fish come off and blah, 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 but I have a good ratio from hooking to landing them, so you've got to expect it once in a while. And I saw it as well, which I know doesn't make it any easier, and it looked like maybe a 40 plus, maybe a little bit bigger, but it's not one of them monsters, and if it was one of them, I'd probably be in a lot worse a state than what I am now. So whilst I'm gutted I lost it, I saw it. But the next one's going to be a big one. Well, even bigger than what we've already caught. So it's hard to lift that over there. Oh yeah, he's over. £40, 15 ounces, not quite 41. Another 40. Oh, amazing. Amazing. That'll do, brothers. Well, despite unfortunately losing the first one right at the net, it was in fact, like you would have already seen, should I say, part of a double take. That was the extreme left rod that went first, and then it was the middle rod. I lost the first one, but like I always say, don't panic, because you're always going to land the second one. Look at that bad boy, £40, 15 ounces of Lac Des Lesmont common. What an unbelievable average fish. And to think we are only a couple of hours in to our second night. Who knows what else is around the corner. What is a bit of a gutter, the one that I did lose was a mirror, which would have been the first mirror of the trip. But I saw it, and like I said, I'm not going to keep going on about it. It happens to all of us. There you go, I've lost one right at the net, but we made amends with this bad boy. Ha ha! What's also crazy is how quick they disappear. Could be swimming right under your feet, you'd never know. Go tell your big brother. I'm going to try and get some sleep. Goodbye. The next bite came to the left-hand rod and swam almost straight into the net, so much so we weren't expecting such a quick netting. This was another lovely common, long lean of around £30. The night passed by until just before first light when the same rod signalled a take.
Right.
Now I've only seen a couple of these fish right on the site, but I didn't have a good look at it. But there's a fish in there called Andy Ruiz, and it looked like that. It's like a real funny shaped mirror with like a real up front gut. The fish held deep and absolutely kicked off, clearly hating the camera light, so we switched it off until the fish showed signs of being beaten. There's a mirror. There's a mirror. Yes! Huh. Well, I didn't lose that mirror at the net. They hate the light. It's unbelievable. You put a light on and they just bolt from it. But that is a mirror, and it's a good mirror. Just before first light. That'll do. This was a much better fish, and I was sure it was one of the known 50s. I went about getting the rod back out, which was clearly doing the bites, and with the signs of first light beginning to show, we had a brew before getting the fish out. About half an hour had passed and we were just in the process of weighing the fish when the re-drop rod burst into life once again. Well, it's just gone first light. Landed that mirror, was just literally, it was on the scales, we were filming the weigh-in, 51 pound it weighs. And the rod that I'd re-dropped back down from where I'd had that bite from is literally just wrapped around again, and I'm into yet another carp. So that one is down there resting safely in the retainer, but 51 pounds, second 50 of the trip now between me and Dad. And it's nice to catch a mirror, and let me tell you, it's a proper nice one as well. And yeah, in again. Madness, absolute madness. Shaking. Every fish in here makes you shake. You just never know. Never know. Deep water, they proper kick off underneath the rods. obviously because I'm not fishing with any leaders, I've only got tubing on. You don't see the fish till the last second, so you just don't know what you're attached to. I mean, this fish here is right under my feet. It's like 14 foot deep down here. I still can't see it. Don't they ever scrap hard? Never felt power like it. I genuinely fight like the Croatia fish. This could be over quick here if that goes in. Go on, we can do it. Yes! Shallow margins, well, deep margins, and when they pop up like that, you've just got to take your chance. I stabbed at him, and we've got another one in the net. And it's another mirror, proper deep-bodied one as well. So, last two fish, both been mirrors, and he's another good one as well. Get it on there. Well, how about this for a French carp? 51 pound of solid Lesmont mirror. My first mirror of the trip. And like I said, I put this rod back out after I landed this one, and we just got this one out to weigh it, and the same rod was away again. I've got another mirror in the net that looks probably upper 30, low 40s. This is beyond my wildest dreams how well this is going. And we've only done 2 nights, and the weather's set to improve, so I don't want to jinx it just yet, but I think things are only going to get better. $37.12. Yeah. And here's the second one then, a little under £38. It has been another amazing night, early mornings fishing. 4 fish, unfortunately I lost that one, but like I said, I'm not going to keep going on about it. 4 fish, what was it, 2 30s, a 40 and a 50. What we're going to do now, I'm going to get this one back, and being in France, I'm going to go down to the supermarket nice and early and take full advantage of the nice fresh pastries that are going to come out of the oven. Yeah, what a great start to the trip. 2 nights in, 7 fish, 2 for the old man, so we're up to 9 I should say. A couple of 50s, an amazing average stamp of fish. Look at that, lovely. Off you go, my son. Off he goes. Right, pastry time. Well, after that little flurry of activity this morning, I said we were going to go down the shops, and we've just come back armed with a load of stuff for breakfast. Dad never had anything last night, so he's back down, or we're back down now in Stalkers. He's just putting a couple of rods out. Same sketch as yesterday, put a couple of rods out. If he gets a bite or gets 2 bites, leave it again, and then maybe look to come back tomorrow or the following days that we're here. And yeah, I'm here cooking breakfast like the good son that I am. We're having sausages, mushrooms and eggs in an old baguette, freshly baked this morning. And yeah, other than that, we're just going to sort of see the morning and early afternoon period out down here, and then go back into the swim and get the rods back out for night. Again, I'm going to put the rods in the same position, certainly 2 of them anyway. I'm a little bit unsure what to do with the third one, because I didn't get anything on the right hand rod. But that's not to say they didn't visit it, but for the last 2 nights I've heard fish so close, and I have found like a couple of shallower areas out there, so I'm probably going to drop one a bit short, but I'll have a little look when I get back later anyway. But yeah, for now, breakfast time. We sank a few brews as the hours ticked away, but after a late breakfast and a busy night, I headed back to the swim to get my head down for a few hours. Whilst Brad went to the lodge for a shower and to back up the footage, Dad stayed in the swim hanging it out until late afternoon when he received a bite on his left hand rod. He landed another fish, and it was another cracking Lesmont common. Before calling Brad round to do the photos, on the scales it went 38.12, and it was another beautiful scale perfect Lesmont common.
Well, there's been nowhere near as much activity in the Stalking swim today, to the point where we'd nearly knocked it on the head. Brad went round for a shower, Tom went back for a sleep, and then just a few telltale signs. Had a small liner, a few bubbles. Don't know, something just told me to set a net up. So set a net up. 10 minutes later, this comes along. £38, absolutely stunning, lovely. Time to wind them in, get back round, get the rods out for the night. Happy days. I don't think we could have wished for a better start. I mean, we're what, 48 hours in. I've not had anything from the main peg that I'm fishing, but during the day I've been going up to Stalkers, and yesterday obviously 2 fish, including a new PB, a 53-pound common, which was brilliant. If that had been the last fish I caught, I think I would have been happy with that. Went up there again today, had another one right at last knockings, 38-pound immaculate looking common. Which has made my day really. So we're just sitting here chewing the fat over what's happened, drinking a cup of tea, and I think try and whiz the rods out before dark and see what the rest of the trip brings us. Hopefully a few more fish, we'll see.
So the rods are out now, ready for night number 3, and I've made a little bit of a change, only on one of the rods. Initially, I had all 3 of them over on the far side, but one of them over there didn't go last night. And again, I heard fish showing in close. Now, I always think if I was fishing on the far bank, I'd probably be fishing over to this margin. Well, obviously you would be fishing over to this margin, and I'm hearing them over here, so there's absolutely no reason why I won't get a bite fishing short over here. And just off to my left-hand side, there is a couple of sort of shallower areas. The far side where I'm fishing to, it's only shallow up to the margin where I've actually caught the fish from. But over here, there is a couple of humps, and the hump that I've actually found round to the left, it's 14.5 feet on top and is surrounded by 23 feet. So it's a real prominent hump. I've seen fish showing along this margin. I don't want to spend any more nights not putting a rod there. So I've sort of taken a gamble, brought one of the ones off of the far bank, dropped it short, one down to the left, which done the majority of the bite sort of last night and this morning, and then again one over onto the spot that also done one on the opposite bank. But yeah, today it's been a bit uneventful for myself. We went down the shops this morning, but my old man, he wound in this morning and he went down again into Stalkers. It was quite obvious from the get-go that there maybe wasn't as many fish in there as what there was the day before, or just the fact that the weather's changed slightly, they wasn't quite as active. But me being me, decided to come back and have a little afternoon siesta, which is the law in France anyway. And yeah, I was snoring my head off and missed all the action because he had a really, really nice common, just over 38 pounds. So he's mega happy. He's gone down into Stalkers both days now and he's had 3 fish, which is really, really good. But what is also good news is I think by him catching a couple of fish down there has potentially pushed a few fish out. And just before it got dark, we did see a couple of fish out to the right, which is where he's fishing. So a lot more promising signs up there for Dad. He's gone round, he's getting his rods out now. The night is still young. We're going to have some tea, and hopefully the next time I see you all, we'll be holding a nice big fat carp. Well, I'm certainly feeling a lot fresher than what I was yesterday. Last night, I just had a solid 12 hours sleep, which I'm not complaining about. The first couple of nights has been pretty manic, and after a long journey down here on Friday night and into Saturday morning, a much needed good night's kip was definitely what the doctor ordered. It was a lot colder last night. Well, certainly when I woke up this morning, there was a slight frost on the inside of the bivvy. There was a real thick mist or fog type thing rolling off of the lake. And that's normally where obviously the air temperature is a lot colder than what the water temperature is. And I don't know about you guys, but I've never really caught a great deal of fish when it's been misty or foggy in the morning. And I think certainly with Lesmont being a lot deeper, a small little cold snap like that can just put the fish off that little bit. I did hear a couple of fish early on into the night, but they had sort of gone a little bit further to my right hand side. And this morning, first light, the old man has had another bite and he's fishing down that bottom end, another fish over 40 pounds. So all is not lost, and we've still managed to so far get bites sort of every night or every early morning, which is really good. And on the plus side as well is today is the only cold day that we've got. And by Thursday, it's showing sort of 14, 15 degrees. So I'm hoping that gets the fish moving around. And one thing as well that you've also got to consider when you're coming to these lakes in France is they're not like the lakes in the UK where you can put more bait out and sort of make something happen. You know, they're big fish. There's not as many of them in these sorts of lakes. And sometimes when you're catching fish continuously, that's when the big ones sort of sit off. So sometimes, you know, when it goes a little bit quieter like what it is now, maybe getting less bites is sort of better, so to speak, because the bigger ones are probably going to get a look in, and you're fishing for fish in here. Well, the big one, the last time it came out was over 80 pound, and it's predicted to hit around 88 to 90 pounds. So yes, that's certainly one of the biggest carp that I've ever been fortunate enough to fish for. And I know it sounds obvious, but the lake's only 10 acres, so you're never that far away from it. And some of these fish that we've heard showing have been absolutely massive. I'm probably going to have a slight change up again tonight with one of the rods. And again, this is another thing as well that a lot of people do when they're fishing lakes where they're using bait boats. So what they do is they'll see a fish, load up a load of bait inside the boat, drive it out to where the fish showed, drop it down, don't get a fish, then they'll move it again. And over the course of 2 or 3 days, you've ended up putting sort of 6 to 8 patches of bait out all around your swim. And when the fish come into your swim, they've got 6 or 7 options to feed. The chances of your hook bait being in the pile that they want to feed in is a lot sort of slimmer than what it would be if you was to just sort of stick to your areas. So what I'm doing is I've got my 2 rods that I'm happy with on the far margin. I found a really nice spot for my middle rod last night, shorter. That never went last night, but what I'm going to do tonight is I'm just going to find another spot down to my right, which is where a majority of the fish showed, and I'm probably going to sort of alternate that rod from the spot to the left, from the spot to the right, but I'm definitely going to keep the 2 on the far side, because as it warms up through the week, the sun beats down that back bank, and you can just imagine that the carp are going to be constantly patrolling up and down that, and I'm hoping that's where I'm going to get my next few bites from. But like I say, we've hit the ground running. We're 3 days into the trip. We've had 11 fish, 2 over 50 pound. It's been way better than I could have expected it to have gone. Dad's absolutely over the moon, you know, to share that moment with Dad. He's had a personal best. It doesn't happen every day, certainly when you're fishing with your old man as well. So yeah, we're 3 days into the trip, 11 fish deep. Who knows what the rest of the week will have in store for us. When it comes to going abroad fishing, a lot of people tend to want to change absolutely everything they do. And one of the things that I see people change the most is the rigs that they use. You know, they'll speak to people that have been to the lake before them, they'll speak to their friends, and they'll just try so many different things or come over with so many different bits and pieces in their armoury, when really, when it comes to a rig, you need to come over here with something that you are 100% confident in. You've only got a week, all right, you might have 2 weeks, but you've only got a week a majority of the time to make something happen. And the last thing that you want to be doing, certainly me anyway, is sitting behind rods with rigs on that I've actually probably never even caught a fish on before. So I've come over with 2 of my favourite rigs. The first one being a D rig and the second one being a Ronnie rig. So the reason why I've come over and used both of those rigs is because they're rigs that I've got the most amount of confidence in. Now, it was quite apparent early on that the fishing here at Lesmont is going to be over to sort of far margins. Whenever you're fishing a far margin, you don't know what's down on the bottom. Obviously, they are lined with trees. Where there's trees, there's going to be loads of leaves, there's going to be loads of little bits of broken off stick. And by fishing a Ronnie rig with a slow sinking pop-up over the top, dropping it from a bait boat, it's ensuring me that every single time I drop, that's going to give me the best presentation possible. Whereas if I was to put a D rig over there, as this drops from a boat, it's going to be sinking down, sitting on the bottom. A fish comes along, all the debris that's on the bottom gets sort of wafted up, so to speak, covers the point of the hook, and you're basically fishing with no rods in the water because the rig itself is just completely covered and completely masked. So like I say, it's very, very important whenever you're coming abroad to always come over with a rig that you're confident in. I've got exactly the same components that I was using last week when I was fishing in England. I've got 20-pound IQ as a boom, obviously a setup Ronnie style, and the hook end a size 4 crank. Like I've said before, since joining Corda, these have always been a hook that's intrigued me massively. I used them last week, I've used them since I've joined Corda. They are a fantastic hook, and I'm using them out here at Lesmont, and so far they have worked absolute wonders. And all of this is attached to a lead clip setup, but fishery rules state out that you have to use rig tubing. It's something that I don't use a lot of, purely and simply because the lakes that I fish, you don't have to use rig tubing. And where I can, I would either use naked setup or I would use lead core. But one thing that I do is that whenever I'm sort of splicing lead core myself and trying to save as much bits and pieces that I can, I always like to try and recycle as much as I can, is whenever you take the bit of lead out of the end of the lead core to splice, I always keep it. And one thing that I've done here is rather than using putty up the tubing, I've simply wrapped a couple of sort of sections, if you like, one halfway up and one at the top on the tubing just to pin it down. Obviously, if you had tungsten tubing, you wouldn't have to do that, but I haven't got any tungsten tubing. So what I've done is I've just added the lead wire from the lead core, wrapped it around the tubing at 2 different intervals, and that just helps to keep everything sunk down and out the way. And something else that I've done as well, when you're using a bait boat, you don't need to use light line and a leader, you know, you can use the thickest line possible. And when you're coming out to a place like this and you're fishing for big fish, you want to put everything in your favour. So the line that I had on was tapered line. It's sort of a 30-pound down to a 10-pound, which I'd quite happily use anywhere in the UK. But coming out here to Lesmont, I've taken those spools off and I've actually put spools of straight through 20-pound mono on. So I know then that everything that I'm using is 100% reliable. And if I hook a fish, unless it comes into any form of snag or unfortunately the hook comes out, I know that I'm putting myself in the best possible chance of landing any carp that I hook. So the rules out here at Lesmont is boilie and pellets only, but given the time of year, sort of late winter, early spring, when it comes to using a hook bait, I want to go for something nice and bright. Now I've brought an array of colours out here, but as is always the way wherever you go in the world, it always seems to be that yellow is always the favoured colour. And I've got on here a little 12mm pop-up. It's slightly over buoyant for the rig, but like I always say, I don't add any additional weight to this rig. All I'll do is just shave this pop-up down just so it sinks nice and slowly, which again is something that I think is very, very important when you're using a bait boat, because even though I'm trying to capture drop and feel the lead down, when that lead hits the bottom, I want the lead to hit the bottom, the rig to sort of be up in the air for maybe 1 or 2 seconds before the weight of the actual rig mechanics itself and indeed the material that I'm using just settles that hook bait nicely down on the bottom above any of the low-lying debris. So that's one of the rigs that I'm going in with, and like I said, there's carp in here to over 80-pound, and I know that if I had a bite and I've got an 80-pounder on the end, I have got the utmost confidence that that rig right there is going to put that carp in my landing net. As well as the cold overnight temperatures, there was a big rise in pressure. It was almost as if a switch had been flicked and there were no signs of carp anywhere. The day passed by uneventfully once again, and even I carried on with the same spots and tactics. I just didn't feel confident staying in the swim with just a few days remaining. I decided on the Thursday to move into Stalkers for the day, hoping to pick a fish off just how Dad managed to. Although there were no signs present and the fizzing had long since stopped, I used the boat to keep the disturbance to a minimum and put 2 rods out, sure that if fish were in the area I'd be in with a chance of a bite, especially with the temperature warming up. The spots were the same as where Dad had caught, so I knew if fish were here they'd find my small parcel of pellet and crushed boilie. The afternoon passed by the same as the day before, although there was definitely a hint of spring in the air. Dad had moved down to the far end of the lake, trying to spread out our rods and trying to seek out where the fish could have moved to with the changing conditions. Unfortunately for us, our efforts were in vain and we just couldn't locate where the fish had disappeared to with the sudden change in air pressure. So I spent most of the day up in Stalkers. It's been about 15-16 degrees today, and we were told that they get right up there when it gets warm, but I've spent the day there, not even had so much as a line. I didn't even see a fish fart, so to speak. But what I did do is when I walked back down to my bivvy about sort of 2-3 o'clock to grab myself a drink, one showed right in the corner of peg 1. Now this is actually the only area of the lake that we haven't sort of physically put a rod in since we've been in. We've been here a fair few nights now. Nothing's happened where I've been for the last couple of nights. We've got the whole sort of roam of the lake, so to speak. Dad's down in peg 4 still, so I thought, you know what, ain't gonna rain tonight, I'm just gonna chuck a few rods in, bring the boat up, bring my bed up. I'm just gonna do a night here just to see. Like, these fish have got to be somewhere. Like on the first few days they weren't easy to catch, but they were showing themselves and we were catching. it's like they've just done a disappearing act. So they've got to be somewhere. So I'm having a go up here tonight. What more can I do, really? I don't know. Brad's cooking tea anyway. This echo makes my life easier, though, I've got to be honest with you. Probably wouldn't move if I didn't have the boat. Bit lazy, I know, but it is what it is. Nice wind blowing down that bottom end now. I got the rod set for what was going to be the final evening of the trip, with high hopes of action after seeing signs for the first time in 3 days. We had a little over 12 hours to make it happen, as our crossing was booked for the following afternoon. With 3 rods deployed just as night fell, it was now out of our hands. The night passed by without a touch, and disappointingly I had to reel in so we could make our crossing. It had certainly been a week of 2 halves, but sometimes it's how fishing goes, and you have to grab an opportunity whilst you can. Lesmont is a brilliant venue, and maybe with a few more anglers it could have kept the fish moving, but it had been a great week nonetheless. I'm sure that every single one of us that go carp fishing, whether it be home or abroad, whenever you drive home from a session, you always analyse the trip, what went wrong, what could have gone better, what you could do better next time, especially when you go to France or you go across to Europe, because you're only going for such a limited amount of time. You might not have next week or next year to go back and sort of rectify any of the problems. Now, when we went out to France last week, the weather was textbook. It was brilliant. You know, the air pressure was 989, 990, overcast, raining, southwesterly winds. And I knew that the weather was going to change ever so slightly towards the middle and sort of later part of the week, and the air pressure was going to increase, but the wind was still going to be there. And even though we was all proper tired driving through the night to get to the lake, when we got there on the Saturday, had a disaster with a bait boat, I'm not going to lie. There was a few chosen words between myself and Brad, and we eventually managed to just dump 3 rods. I would say anywhere. There was a little bit of a plan of where they were going, but they didn't go out how I would have liked them to have gone out. Anyway, clipped the bobbins on. The first morning, 3 fish. Second night, into the morning again, another 5 bites. And I have just spent the last 4 nights fishing pulling my hair out, because Lesmont is not the biggest of lakes. It is relatively deep. It's averaging probably 18 to 22 feet. But for the last 4 nights, we've moved. We've had the boat going up and down with echo sounders. We've fished different swims, me and my old man. And it's like the fish have just done a disappearing act. And the only thing that I can put it down to, well, there's a couple of things really. First and foremost, in January, they removed all the marginal snags. Now, obviously, these fish have spent a lot of their life living in these marginal snags. And I think what's happened is where me and Dad have caught a few, we've sort of upset them, and where they would normally go and hide in these margins, they're not there. So they've gone to sort of hide, realise that they can't quite shelter like they used to be able to, and I think it's just thrown them all out of sorts. And the air pressure, I think the air pressure increasing has been the biggest killer on this trip. But one thing that I am pleased about is obviously that we made the most of the small windows of opportunity at the start of the week, because we had multiple bites and that was enough to make the session. Like, yes, it would have been nice to have ended on a couple more fish, and knowing what fish are in there, you're only ever 1 bite away from a real big one. But I suppose that's the beauty with somewhere like France. If there's a real big one in there, you've always got that chance. But what's mad about it is, and I say this to so many people, and quite a lot of people say it doesn't make a blind bit of difference, but for me, air pressure is probably the single biggest factor when it comes to carp fishing. Back when we filmed the underwater film last year, we had 2 days of high pressure, and we didn't struggle for a bite, but they didn't want to feed nowhere near as hard as what they did when the air pressure dropped. And it was the difference between day and night, and the fish just went absolutely crazy. And I think that's what's happened there. And like I say, no matter what we tried, it just didn't happen. And it's super frustrating driving home knowing that sort of the middle part of next week, the air pressure is going to drop, because you almost know that you could go back there and catch, because when they were having it, you know, we was not dropping the boats anywhere, but they were moving around, they were charging around, and they were feeding. But it's just crazy to see, you know, and as an angler, and with the way that the current climate is, no 2 days are ever the same. So this video and this session just highlights the importance of make the most of every single opportunity, because you might only get a real small feeding spell. And if you have the attitude of, oh, I'll get the rods back out in the morning, even if you're really tired, by the time the morning comes, if the air pressure's changed, you could be sitting there and you might not get another bite. And that's pretty much what happened. You know, we made the most of it the first couple of nights, and then the last, 4 or 5 nights, it was like the fish had done a disappearing act. But like I said, as an angler, I'm sure we all drive away from any session and try to analyse. But the one thing that I can take from this is air pressure plays a massive, massive part in carp's behaviour.